The 10,000-year peace is over. Aliens declare war, but humans only law. The humans are laughing at us, Supreme Commander, Zorak reported. Lieutenant Vex, her violet skin flushing a deeper shade of purple. With embarrassment, they are actually laughing. Zorak's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme agitation among the Keon species, but his upper appendages gripped the common chair so tightly that the reinforced began to warp. Replay the transmission. Heg rolled the main view screen, flickered to life, showing the face of the human representative, a female with auburn hair cut short against her skull and eyes, the color of Earth's oceans. Her name was Admiral Tessa Monroe, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. Let me get this straight, she said, not even attempting to hide the smirk playing across her lips. You, the mighty Keon Empire, are declaring war on humanity. Because we refuse to give you exclusive mining rights to uninhibited rock at the edge of our solar system. Zordok's secondary heart began to palpitate. The audacity, the disrespect, the complete lack of terror. We are the Keon Empire, he had told her. In the original transmission, we have conquered 12 galaxies. Our warships blot out suns. Our soldiers number in the trillionth one. 0-year peace treaty signed by your ancestors has expired, and we choose not to renew it. Surrender now or face extinction. And what had this human done? Laughed. Actually load. You realize we have been watching you guys for the past 1,000 years. Right, Admiral Monroe continued in the recording. We have been monitoring your communications, studying your technology, analyzing your tactics. The treaty wasn't for our protection, it was for yours. The bridge fell silent. 50 of the Empire's highest-ranking officers stared at their Supreme Commander, waiting for his reaction. She's bluffing, whispered Regians. Officer Krell, her voice barely audible. They must be bluffing, are they? Questioned Zorak, turning to his intelligence. Director Lura explained this reaction. Why aren't they cowering? Aren't they begging for mercy? They are just one species confined to a single solar system. The Director Lura stepped forward, his exoskeleton clicking nervously. Supreme Commander, our intelligence on humans is limited. The treaty prevented direct observation. We know they were primitive. When we first encountered them, they had just achieved spaceflight. Their weapons were chemical-based. Their medicine still relied on cutting open bodies and stitching them back together. And now, demanded Zorak. We don't know, admitted Lura. The treaty kept us 5 light-years away from their system at all times. We have detected unusual energy readings over centuries, but nothing conclusive. It's possible they have advanced. Zor snorted. In a mere 1,000 years. Impossible. No species develops that quickly. It took us 15 years to achieve interstellar travel. With all due respect, Commander, interrupted Fleet Admiral Dex. Perhaps Westhold sent a scout ship to assess their capabilities before committing to full invasion. Cowardice, snapped Zorak. From my Fleet Admiral. No less. We are Keon. We do not scout. We do notasis. We conquer. But Supreme Commander persisted. Dex, her facial tentacles writhing with concern. If there's even a slight chance the human is telling the truth. Enough, roared Zorak, rising to his full height of 12 feet. Prepare the armada. All ships, all warriors. We will darken their skies. We will boil their oceans. We will remind these humans what it means to face the might of the Keon Empire. As the bridge officers scrambled out, carry out his orders. Zordak turned back to the screen, studying the human's face. Admiral Monroe was still smirking. One more thing, she said in the recording. Just before cutting transmission, when you come, bring something interesting. We have been stuck in this solar system for 1,000 years with nothing to do but prepare for your return. We are really looking forward to seeing what you have. Get the transmission ended. And Zor, that felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. Was it doubt? He shook his massive head, dispelling the unwelcome feeling. Director Lua, what is the human military capacity? Lua consulted his datapad. Based on 1,000-year-old intelligence, had approximately 50 million soldiers and 10 primitive spacecraft and officers. 10 trillion warriors across the Empire, with 500 million current allied deployed on our capital ships. The Armada consists of 100,000 warships, each capable of reducing a planet's surface to magmas. Sorthok relaxed slightly. Their numbers don't lie. Even if they have advanced, they can't have matched that kind of military might. There's something else. Supreme Commander, said Lura hesitantly. Both humans speak. In our initial assessments, we noted an unusual psychological trait. They respond to threats by becoming more aggressive rather than more submissive, and they have a strange relationship with their mortality. They know they will die, yet they act as if they are immortal. It makes their behavior unpredictable. Waved a dismissive appendage. Psychological peculiarities won't save them from plasma cannons. Set course for the Sol system. System maximum velocity. As the mighty Kian armada began to move, forming a swarm of destruction, stretching across light years. Zord That couldn't shake the memory of the human's laugh. It wasn't the laugh of someone bluffing, it was the laugh of someone who knew something he didn't, and for the first time in his 300-year life, Supreme Commander Zorak felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The journey to Earth took 3 standard weeks. 3 weeks of preparation, 3 weeks of battle simulations, 3 weeks of Zorak reassuring his commanders that this will be a swift and glorious conquest, 3 weeks of trying to forget the sound of human laughter. We are approaching the edge of the Sol system. Supreme Commander announced. Navigator Zel Pluto orbit in 5 minutes. Zorak nodded, his silver ceremonial armor gleaming under the bridge. Lycha dressed for victory today. Any sign they have detected us? Communications officer Trill checked her instruments. Nothing. Commander, no transmissions, no defensive preparation. Share system appears completely open. Overconfidence huffed. Zor Th, the masterioable harbinger of defeat. As the armada crossed the boundary of the Sol system, every Kian on the bridge waited for alarms for human death. Enders to appear for anything that would explain Admiral Monroe's baffling confidence. Nothing happened. Continue approach, ordered Zorak. Battle formation. The Kion warships moved Diperinto, the system passing the ice giants Neptune and Uranus without incident. When they reached Saturn, Zorak began to relax. Perhaps the humans really were the Crexian armada approaches bluffing. Perhaps they had simply gone insane during their 1,000 years of isolation. Supreme Commander called Science Officer Kell suddenly. I'm detecting anomalous readings from Saturn's rings. Explain. Get the rings are moving. She said, confusion evident in her voice. Sections of them are changing position against orbital mechanics. Before Zorak could respond, the tactical display erupted with warning. Rings of Saturn were breaking apart, but not randomly. They were reforming, shifting, transforming. It's not ice, whispered Krell. The rings, they are not ice and rock, they are ships. Finished. Zorth watching in horror as millions nor billions of tiny craft emerged from their perfect hiding place. They had been disguised as part of Saturn's rings, indistinguishable from natural debris until they moved. Incoming transmission. Trill, her voice shaking. The view screen activated, showing Admiral Monroe. Again she was standing on what appeared to be a bridge similar to their own, but sleeker, more advanced. Welcome to Sol, Commander Zorak, she said cheerfully. I see you brought whole family. How thoughtful. Zorak struggled to maintain his composure. What is the meaning of this deception? Where did these ships come from? Deception. Monroe raised an eyebrow. Oh, deception. Just preparation. As for the ships, we built them all, 10 billion of them. We had a lot of time on our hands, you know what, with the peace treaty and all. Impossible. Raw. Zor Th, no civilization could build so many vessels. Oh, that's right, you still build ships by hand, don't you? How quaint. Monroe smiled. We automated that process about 800 years ago. These days, our fabricators can produce a fully functional warship every 1.3 seconds. He'd do the math. Zor Th turned to his tacticalifier weapon status. All systems ready, Supreme Commander. Target their fleet in fire. Monroe sighed on the screen. Realities, your move. All right then. The Kian armada unleashed its fury. 100 capital ships firing simultaneously at the swarm of human vessels. The vacuum of space lit up with energy weapons, a dazzling display of destructive power that would have annihilated any conventional force. But the human ships moved. They didn't just evade, they danced. They twisted and turned with impossible precision, some of them accelerating at speeds that should have liquefied any organic pilot. They are not manned, realized. Krelthos ships are autonomous. Correct again, said Mon, watching with apparent amusement. We call them the Swarm, fully A-controlled. They have been running combat simulations against Kion tactics for about 900 years. Now they are pretty good at it. Not a single human vessel had been hit, not one. Our turn, said Monroe, her smile fading. Just a smile demonstration. A group of human ships, perhaps 1,000 out of the billions, broke formation and accelerated toward the Kian fleet. They were tiny comparetto, the massive Kian warships, each no larger than a planetary shuttle. The defensive screens at maximum, ordered Zorak. The human vessels didn't fire. Instead, they simply passed through the Kion defense screens as If they weren't there, then they made contact with the hulls of 20 Kian ships and phased right through the solid metal seconds. Those 20 Kian warships simply came apart at the molecular level, disintegrating into clouds of component atoms. The bridge of the Imperial flagship fell silent. "This shift technology," explained Monroe casually, "allows our ships to temporarily exist between states of matter. We figured it out while studying quantum mechanics. It's pretty useful hard to defend against something that can just ignore your defenses." Entirely, Zorak had no words. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was magic witchcraft science that defied comprehension. So continued Monroe, clapping her hands together, "Here's my counter-offer. You take your fleet and go home. You renew the treaty, this time for 10 years, and we will pretend this little misunderstanding never happened, and if we refuse, managed." Zorak's voice barely a whisper. "Admiral." Monroe's face turned serious for the first time. "Then we will finish our demonstration, and the Kian Empire will need to find a new Supreme Commander and about 10 new warships." Supreme Commander. Zorak had never retreated in his entire 300-year military career. The concept was so foreign to Kian doctrine that their language lacked a proper word for it. Theclos's translation was strategic repositioning for future conquest, the phrase so rarely used that most officers didn't even know it existed. Yet here he was ordering the most powerful armada in the universe to back away from a single star system, all ships reverse course, he commanded, each word tasting bitter on his tongue. Maintained defensive formation, no aggressive actions. His bridge officers exchanged shocked glances, but carried out his orders without question. Even the most battle-hungry among them had witnessed the molecular disintegration of 20 Kian warships. None wished to share that fate. "The human vessels are holding position," reported Tactical Officer JXC. "They are not pursuing on the view screen." Admiral Monroe nodded approvingly. "Wise choice, Commander. Your ships are free to leave unharmed." "This isn't over," growled Zorak. "Kian Empire does not surrender." "Of course not." Agreed. Monroeth, a hint of that infuriating smirk returning. "You are just strategic reposen. For future conquest, we understand." Completely. Zorak's upper eyes narrowed. "You speak our language. We speak all 177 languages across the Kian Empire," she replied, "including the 22 classified military dialects. A linguistic analysis was one of our early research priorities." "You have been spying on Usyk." Zorak, despite the treaty, Admiral, laughed again, that same confident laugh that had haunted him for weeks. "The treaty prevented US from approaching within 5 light-years of Kian space. It said nothing about remote observation, remote observation across thousands of light-years, some possible quantum entanglement. Communication," she explained as if talking to a child. "Instantaneous data transfer across unlimited distances. We have had tiny observation probes scattered throughout your empire for about 950 years now. They are a booth size of a dust particle, so don't bother looking for them." Zorak felt the humiliating rhetoric building, threatening to overwhelm his judgment. "You dare mock the greatest empire the universe has ever known." "Greatest?" Monroe tilted her head thoughtfully. "By what metric territory?" "Sure, you have got us beat there. We have stayed in one solar system, but technology, resource, efficiency, scientific understanding, medical advancement, I'm afraid you are lagging behind by several centuries." "You lie," roared Zorak. "No species advances so quickly." "Most don't," agreed Monroe, "but most species don't have our particular combination of short lifespans, intense curiosity, and existential dread. We knew who might face extinction at any moment. It's remarkable what humans can accomplish when properly motivated." As the Kian fleet continued its humiliating withdrawal, Director Lerma approached Zorak's command. Cherant spoke in hushed tones. "Supreme Commander, I have been analyzing their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database, and their numbers, even with advanced automation, constructing billions of warships would require resources beyond what a single solar system should provide." "Your point, Director," hissed "I believe they have mastered meter conversion. On a fundamental level, they are creating ships from raw energy, perhaps even from vacuum fluctuations. The scientific implications are staggering." Zorak absorbed this information with growing horror. If humans could create matter from energy at will, there was no limit to their military potential. They could produce endless armadas, endless weapons, endless ordeals. "Admiral Monroe," he said, forcing civility into his voice, "before we depart, must ask, why did your ancestors sign the treaty in the first place, if not For protection then, for what purpose? Ours. Expressions softened, slightly honestly. Pity, repeated Zor incredulously. Our first contact. Specialists determined that your species represents a developmental dead end, she explained. Your biological and cultural evolution has reached its apex with outside influence. You will remain technologically stagnant for millennia. Our ancestors thought giving you 1,000 years might help you advance independently, catch up a bit before we had to interact as equals. Violently, that was overly optimistic. The bridge fell silent. Again, not the silence of shock this time, but the silence of collective humiliation. Every officer, every warrior present felt the sting of her words because deep down they recognized the truth in them. The Empire hadn't produced a significant technological advancement in generations. Their conquest had always been about appropriating the innovations of others, not creating their own. We will return, promised Zor, desperation making his voice crack. We will study, we will advance, and we will return. I truly hope you do, said Monroe, and for the first time there seemed to be genuine sincerity in her voice. The galaxy needs the case hands to evolve beyond conquest. There are threats out there that require cooperation, not competition, threats that neither humans nor Chonskon face alone. Zorzi's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. What threats in 12 galaxies? We have encountered no species more powerful than ourselves because they don't want to be found, said Monroe. Cryptically, not yet, but they are watching just as we have been, watching you before Zorok could demand clarification. The massive human fleet began to move, not toward the retreating Cassans but into a complex formation that seemed to ripple through space itself. What are they doing? Asked, frantically checking her instruments. I don't, began Lura, then froze mid-sentence. Supreme Commander, they are creating a gravitational anomaly, a massive one on the view screen. The billions Opherman ships began to rotate in perfect synchronization, generating an artificial gravity well of impossible proportion. Space itself began to warp visibly. This is just a small demonstration of what we can do, said Monroe. A little something to remember us by. The swirling vortex of ships suddenly collapsed inward, and for a brief moment it seemed as if a new star had been born. A blinding flash forced the view screen to darken automatically when the light faded where billions of ships had been now floated, a perfectly formed Saturn rings, in all an exact duplicate of the gas giant created in minutes. Did they just make a planet? Whispered Navigator Zell, her voice tinged with religious awe. We will be in touch, Commander Zorak, said Monroe, her image beginning to fade. When you are ready for a real conversation about the future. Until then, I suggest you use your time wisely. As the transmission ended, and the Kian Armada limped away from the cell system, Zord that remained motionless in his command chair staring at the duplicate Saturn growing smaller on the view screen. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be primitive. The return to Kia Prime took 3 months. 3 months of silence and shame. 3 months of Zor locked in his quarters, reviewing everything they knew about humans, searching desperately for some weakness, some flaw in their seemingly godlike capabilities, found none. When the Armada finally reached the Kian home world, Zorodak expected to be stripped of his rank, possibly even executed for his failure. The Kian Empire did not tolerate defeat, but to his surprise, the High Council requested only a private audience away from the prying eyes of the general population. Tell us everything, commanded Arch-Councillor Vexer, the oldest living Sheen and nominal head of the Empire Eve. Nothing out. Zorek recounted the entire humiliating encounter, the human slaughter, the hidden fleet, the phase shift technology, the matter creation, oft duplicate Saturn. With each revelation, the council members' expressions grew more grave, and these humans claim there are greater threats than themselves. Asked Councillor Dries, when he had finished. Yes, Councillor. Though they provided no specifics. A bluff, perhaps, suggested Councillor Krell, a tactic to prevent us from focusing our efforts on defeating them. Zorok shook his head. I do not believe so. The human Admiral had no reason to fabricate such a claim. They had already demonstrated their superiority. Then what do you propose, Supreme Commander? Asked Vexer, leaning forward. What course of action serves the Empire best? In this unprecedented situation, Zorok had spent 3 months considering this question. His answer would determine not just his fate, but potentially the fate of the entire species. I propose we learn, he said simply. Learn, repeated Vexer. Elaborate. The humans were right about us, admitted Zorak. The words, physically painful to speak. We have become stagnant, complacent. For 10,000 years we have conquered rather than created. stolen technology rather than developing our own. It has left us vulnerable. Murmurs of outrage rippled through the council chamber, but Vexer raised a gnarled hand for silencing. New beginning for the Galactic 10. I propose a fundamental restructuring of imperial priorities, said Zorak. Less focus on military expansion, more on scientific advancement. We must close the technological gap between ourselves and the humans you suggest we abandon. Conquest scrolled Counselor Traz, the very foundation of our society not abandoned, clarified Zor. Act postponed for a century perhaps, to dedicate those resources to research and development instead. And what of the humans in the meantime, asked Vexmar. What if they choose to leave their solar system to conquer? As we have conquered they won't, said Zorak, with certainty. If conquest were their ambition, they would have begun 1,000 years ago. They possessed a different kind of power, one we don't yet understand. The council chambers fell silent as the assembled leaders contemplated his words, and finally Vexer spoke. There is wisdom in your proposal, Supreme Commander, wisdom, but wisdom knoweth us. The ancient sheens for eyes fixed on Zorak, but such a fundamental shift will face resistance. It many will call it cowardice. Let them, said Zorak firmly. We have seen what awaits us. If we continue on our current path, the war we cannot win. Extinction perhaps. I would rather suffer accusations of cowardice than lead our species to annihilation. Vexer nodded slowly. Very well, we will put it to a vote, but first there is one more matter to address. He motioned to a guard, who activated a communication panel. Bring in visitor. The chamber doors slid open, and to Zorak's astonishment, a human entered. Not Admiral Monroe, but a male, tall and lean, with dark skin and close-cropped hair. He wore no military uniform, only simple clothing in earth colors. This is Dr. Jackson Webb, introduced Vexer. He arrived yesterday alone in Avasal, no larger than a personal shuttle. How did he reach Kia Prime? Demanded Zorak. Our defenses were quite impressive, interrupted Dr. Webb pleasantly. I particularly liked the autonomous minds in the Cygnus approach. Very creative. Supreme Command and Zorak, I presume, continued Webb, with an extended hand. After a moment of confusion, Zorak reluctantly extended his own appendage, and the human clasped it briefly. Admiral Monroe sends your regards. Why are you here, human? Growled Zorak. To offer assistance, replied Webb simply, and to deliver. He handed Zorthak a small device no larger than a Keon data crystal. It pulsed with a soft blue light. What is it? The complete scientific and technological history of humanity, said Webb. Every discovery, every invention, every theoretical framework, from the wheel to phase shift technology, everything except weapons. Of course, those you will have to figure out yourselves, if you are so inclined. Zorak stared at the tiny device in disbelief. Why would you give us this? Webb smiled, and Zorak was struck by how similar it was to Monroe's expression. Not quite a smirk, but class smile of a species utterly confident in its position, because evolution requires compassion, explained Webb. For the past 1,000 years humans have had none. We have advanced quickly, yes, but without external pressure, without diverse perspectives. We have become inbred intellectually speaking. You want us as competitors? Asked Zorak skeptically. We want you as colleagues, corrected Webb. Partners in the greater project of Galactic's. The threats Admiral Monroe mentioned, they are real, and they will require more than just human innovation to overcome. Vexer leaned forward again. What threats precisely? Webb's expression turned somber. There are spaces between galaxies, sure. Light behaves strangely, regions where the fundamental laws of physics flex. We have been studying them for centuries. Something is coming, something old, something that considers both our species, nothing more than passing bacteria on a cosmic petri dish. And you believe the Kian Empire would aid humanity against such a threat? Asked Counselor Dries incredulously. After your humiliation of our fleet, I believe you will aid yourselves, replied Webb. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator common to both our species, and I believe that, given time, and this he nodded at the device in Zorak's hand, you might actually become the allies we need. Zorak looked down at the tiny crystal, containing millennia of human knowledge. It would change everything. Thebalance of power within the Empire, in social hierarchies, the economic systems, their entire way of life. It would also save them from obsolescence. We accept your offering, Dr. Webb, said Zorak finally. And your challenge? Webb nodded, seemingly satisfied. In that case, I'm authorized to propose a new treaty, not one of separation this time, but of limited cooperation, scientific exchange, cultural preparation for what's coming, and military matters. Asked Zortet, that cautiously. Webb's expression turns Serious again, let's just say that how quickly we share our defensive technologies will depend entirely on how quickly you abandon your offensive ambitions. The implication was clear. The humans were offering a path forward, but not unconditional trust. That would have to be earned as the council debated the terms of this unprecedented treaty. Zorak found himself studying the human not with petard or resentment now, but with curiosity. How had they advanced so quickly? What drove them to explore rather than conquer? What could the mighty Kian Empire learn from a species confined to a single solar system? And most puzzling of all, why did they still laugh in the face of threats? Even now, as Webb caught his gaze, there was that same hint of amusement, that same inexplicable confidence. Perhaps Zordak reflected that would be the first mystery they would solve, the peculiar psychology of a species that responded to Drasov war, not with fear, not with anger, but with laughter. Me, for the first time since his humiliating retreat from Earth's ore, that felt something new stirring within him, not thirst for vengeance, not shame, but something he hadn't experienced since his youth, when he'd first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. Curiosity. And as Dr. Webb began explaining his proposal for joint research initiatives, Zordok found himself against all odds, looking forward to the future, a future where perhaps the Kian Empire might become something more than conquerors, something worthy of standing alongside humanity when the real war began.